There are moments in royal history when the palace doesn't tremble because of war or scandal, but because someone finally speaks. Not loudly, not publicly, just enough for the walls to hear. This is one of those moments. For years, Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, has been treated as the royal survivor. The woman who saw everything, endured everything, and learned when silence was safer than truth. She outlived disgrace, exile, ridicule, and she kept secrets the way palaces always do, buried deep, wrapped in loyalty, sealed with tradition. Until now, because whispers from royal-adjacent circles say Fergie has finally acknowledged a chapter long rumored but never touched directly. A story she once refused to confirm. A history tied to Prince Andrew. And a young American woman whose name would one day echo through the palace halls like a dropped glass. Meghan Markle. And if even a fraction of what is being whispered is true, not proven, not documented, but circulated, then the foundations of Meghan's carefully told origin story may not be as clean as many believed. This is not a verdict. This is not a confirmation. This is the opening of a door that was never meant to move. To understand why these whispers matter, you have to go back, far back, to a time before Meghan Markle was a duchess, before paparazzi followed her, before the palace ever knew her name. Early 2000s. Europe. A world where influence moved quietly and introductions mattered more than credentials. Public records confirm Prince Andrew was traveling through Europe during this period in an official capacity. That much is fact. What follows next exists not in documents, but in stories passed between people who insist they were present, stories that have lived in the shadows for decades. According to those accounts, a private gathering took place off the coast of Nice, France. Not a hotel, not a public venue, a yacht. Invitations extended selectively. No press, no record. Privacy by design. These were not random guests. They were wealthy, connected, insulated. And among them, sources claim, was a young American woman, unknown, ambitious, observant. Meghan Markle. At the time, she was not famous, not royal, not protected. But those who say they saw her that night describe something striking, not hesitation, but confidence. Not awe, but calculation. She spoke about her future as if it were already scheduled. Hollywood. Influence. Power. She didn't behave like someone hoping for opportunity. She behaved like someone expecting it. And then came the moment everyone remembers. Prince Andrew arrived late that evening. No spectacle, no announcement, just presence. And according to multiple accounts passed down through the years, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Attention redirected. Energy tightened. Witnesses claim Meghan noticed immediately. Not subtly, not shyly, deliberately. Stories describe her positioning herself close enough to be seen, close enough to matter. Conversations shortened. Distance collapsed. And while no one can prove what followed, what people insist they remember is how quickly the dynamic changed. Too quickly to be accidental. Others on board noticed. Whispers started. Tension rose. This wasn't flirtation lost in candlelight. It was visible, assertive, unmissable. And crucially, no one stopped it. That's where rumor hardens into something heavier, because bold moves only succeed when power allows them to. Accounts claim the two disappeared from view shortly after. Hours became days. Crew members later said only one cabin showed activity. Food deliveries. Privacy respected. Silence enforced. No photos exist. No recordings. Just memory. And memory in royal circles is currency. When the pair reemerged, witnesses say Meghan looked composed, satisfied even. One line attributed to her has echoed quietly for years, passed from mouth to mouth, never printed, never denied. A sentence that sounded less like a joke and more like a belief. From there, everything fractured. Prince Andrew returned to London. Communication allegedly stopped. Calls unanswered. Messages ignored. Doors closed without explanation. And that silence, not drama, not rejection, became the pressure point where rumor transformed into consequence. Because according to those same whisper networks, Meghan believed she carried news powerful enough to force acknowledgement. News that would demand response. But the palace, if these stories are accurate, did not respond. And when powerful institutions go quiet, individuals are left alone with decisions that change everything. A closed phone line. A silence that stretched too long. A belief that something irreversible had already begun. What followed next, according to years of quiet speculation, would reshape Meghan's path, harden her ambition, and bury a chapter so deeply that even marriage into royalty wouldn't fully erase it. And decades later, one woman, Fergie, may have finally cracked that seal. Not loudly, not publicly, but just enough for the palace to feel the cold air slip inside. Silence is never empty in royal stories. It's crowded with meaning. When the phone stops ringing, when doors don't open, when names suddenly become unspeakable, that's when consequences begin to form. Not loudly, not publicly, but inward, where choices harden and futures pivot. This is where the story shifts away from ambition and into aftermath. Because according to long-circulating accounts, whatever happened off the coast of Nice did not end when the yacht drifted back toward shore. It followed. It lingered. And it demanded answers that never came. Those who claim to know the next chapter say Meghan didn't immediately panic. At first, there was patience, confidence, the belief that silence was temporary, strategic, even expected. After all, powerful men disappear all the time. They resurface when it suits them. But weeks passed. The calls allegedly went unanswered. Messages, if sent, were never returned. Intermediaries offered nothing. And eventually, sources say, a quiet instruction circulated inside Prince Andrew's orbit. Do not engage. That wasn't confusion. That was containment. According to palace-adjacent gossip that has circulated for years, Meghan believed she was holding information that would force acknowledgement. Something that would make silence impossible. People close to her at the time reportedly understood exactly what she meant when she said she had news. Inside that circle, the meaning wasn't vague, but silence remained. And silence, when paired with belief, becomes pressure. Pressure becomes fear. And fear forces decisions that no one plans for. The accounts grow darker here, not because of spectacle, but because of isolation. If these stories are accurate, Meghan faced a moment where ambition collided with reality. No title, no protection, no palace door opening, just a choice. What followed is described quietly, never directly, always with lowered voices. An ending to something that had barely begun. Not framed as regret, not framed as shame, but as necessity. And if this story ended there, it might have dissolved into rumor forever. But sources insist it didn't, because the aftermath wasn't emotional. It was physical. Those same circles whisper that complications followed. Medical issues that escalated quickly. Appointments kept discreet. Conversations not shared. And then, a procedure so serious it permanently altered the course of her life. This is the part of the story that never appears in public timelines, never surfaces in interviews, never becomes anecdote, because it doesn't fit the narrative of reinvention. And whether true or not, the persistence of this rumor has haunted royal watchers for one reason. It explains too much. The urgency, the intensity, The later emotional language around motherhood, loss, and control of narrative. After this period, sources say Meghan changed, not softened, but sharpened. Focus narrowed. Targets shifted. Where one door had closed, others would be approached more strategically. Political circles. Entertainment circles. Influence adjacent to power. Patterns don't disappear. They evolve. Those who believe this story say this is when Meghan learned her most enduring lesson. Proximity matters, but protection matters more. And protection only comes when power is shared, not borrowed. Years later, when she finally entered the royal family through Prince Harry, the past didn't vanish. It simply stayed buried, layered beneath a new identity, a new role, a new narrative. But royal families don't erase history. They archive it. Which brings us back to Sarah Ferguson. Fergie is not a reckless speaker. She survived humiliation by mastering restraint. Those who watch her closely say she only speaks when silence becomes heavier than truth. And when she recently alluded, not explicitly, not dramatically, to things that were known and paths crossed earlier than people realize, ears inside the palace reportedly perked up. She didn't need to say Meghan's name. She didn't need to explain. Because the people who remember don't need reminding. In the space between rumor and recognition, a past that refuses to stay buried, a silence that lasted too long to be accidental, a woman who reinvented herself, carrying a chapter she could never fully rewrite. And somewhere inside the palace, a quiet realization taking hold. Some stories don't disappear with time. They wait for the right moment to resurface. There's a rule inside royal circles. Nothing ever truly disappears. It waits. According to palace watchers, the moment Sarah Ferguson spoke, even obliquely, something shifted. Phones went quiet. Advisors leaned in. Old names resurfaced in conversations that hadn't been spoken aloud in decades. Not accusations. Not confirmations. Just recognition. Because when someone like Fergie hints, she isn't guessing. She's remembering. And memory is dangerous. Those who believe this story say Meghan felt it immediately, not as panic, but as pressure. The kind that builds when you realize the past isn't buried. It's documented, filed away in other people's minds, waiting for the wrong sentence, the wrong book deal, the wrong moment of honesty. The palace doesn't need to expose anything. It never has. It lets time do the work. Portraits don't blink, but they watch. Corridors don't speak, but they echo. And secrets don't scream, they surface. If more words come from Fergie, even softly, the narrative shifts, not publicly at first. Internally, where decisions are made, where protection is calculated, where people decide who is worth shielding and who is not. This isn't about revenge. It's about records. And once a story moves from rumor to remembered truth, it doesn't matter how carefully a new life was built on top of it. The past has already found the door. It hasn't knocked yet, but the handle is turning.